If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. And now, the Sunday address. This is a tale of two Seans, Sean Combs and Sean Carter. Talk about breaking news that stays broken. Yeah, I guess they had to get around to Jay-Z sooner or later. Now, for the 2 or 3 of you who may have been under a rock or perhaps in solitary confinement for the last few weeks, just so you know, one of the women who's accusing P. Diddy of sexually assaulting her, she's also changed her civil complaint and is now claiming that Jay-Z assaulted her too. She says that this happened at some party back in 2000 when she was allegedly 13 years old. Apparently it was some after party at the VMA Awards. Now, why would anyone be having a 13-year-old at the VMAs? And why did this woman wait nearly 25 years before she said anything? Me Too was 7 years ago, but as we all know, this is the failed wannabe video vixen's retirement plan these days. Not all, but a disproportionate number of these women, especially the ones that you see in the media running around claiming that this or this actor, this or that so-called singer, entertainer, celebrity did something to them. Most of these women happen to be a bunch of MAWs, model, actresses, whatevers. And these are women whose careers, such as they were, didn't go anywhere or didn't become what they thought they would. So this is the fallback plan. I'm just going to go ahead and accuse this guy of something and try to cash in on his money. Now, of course, the white media, they're just recycling the same accusations that were made against Cosby. When you find something that's worked, or at least you think worked, then you stick with it. It's been that way since the nonstop smear campaign against Michael Jackson back in the 90s. Michael was totally innocent. But once a black man showed that he would pay money to make these unproven allegations go away, that kicked off a feeding frenzy, and we still see it today. As Brother Tariq said, we're all one big nigger to them. So, is this just another smear job that the white media is only too happy to help promote for the sake of shaking down a black celebrity? This woman is making accusations against both Puff Daddy and Jay-Z, and her attorney, Tony Busby, is representing her in both these actions. Well, as it turns out, an unnamed black male celebrity is accusing this attorney, Tony Busby, of trying to extort him for money by using the same tactics, trying to capitalize off the explosive allegations against Sean Combs by roping in public figures who have been acquainted with Combs. Attorneys for this black celebrity claim that Busby sent a demand letter last month in which his firm threatened to unleash entirely fabricated and salacious allegations of sexual assault that include multiple instances of rape of a minor, both male and female, if their client refuses to comply with their demands. So it turns out this isn't the first time that this attorney has been involved in a suit like this. Now, according to the lawsuit of this woman bringing accusations against Diddy and Jay-Z, her attorneys reached out to Jay-Z to request a mediation to resolve this matter. Now remember, this is exactly how Bill Cosby wound up being maneuvered into prison. When he had that civil case brought against him, he initially refused to answer any questions because he knew that the prosecutors would try to take anything that he said and twist it into some sort of half-brained grounds for a prosecutorial case. Now, the prosecutor in that case, who was different than the one who actually went after him in court, that guy understood that there really were no grounds for a criminal trial at all. But he wanted to at least try to give the accuser, that Kenny G lookalike, the ability to bring some sort of civil suit. So he said, we're going to go ahead and waive any and all criminal prosecution against Cosby. That way he no longer has Fifth Amendment protection, because Fifth Amendment protection is only for criminal cases, not civil cases. And once the DA had announced that his office would not be seeking criminal charges against Cosby no matter what he said, that made it where Cosby was pretty much obligated to have to answer all of the civil suit's deposition questions. And the DA's promise not to prosecute for criminal charges made it where the deposition was inadmissible in a criminal court. But as we all know, under white supremacy, they take both sides of the argument. I'm white and I say so is the entirety of the law. So as soon as the very next DA took office, he immediately filed charges against Cosby using that same inadmissible deposition, which a corrupt judge illegally allowed to be presented as evidence, and which led to an illegal conviction and incarceration of Bill Cosby. And that's the reason why the Pennsylvania Supreme Court immediately threw out that conviction and also immediately released Bill Cosby from prison. He never should have been there in the first place. But this is the reason why these civil cases are actually gateways to criminal prosecution, because that's how they're used against black defendants. Now, I do give Jay-Z credit for one thing. He's put out a statement saying that if these accusations are true, how come the accuser isn't filing a criminal complaint? And he's right. He's daring this person to try to make a criminal case against him. In other words, daring them to go to the police and file a report, then see if there's any DA who will actually try to take it to trial. But in this case, I believe Jay-Z, not because I think he's for black empowerment. He's not. He and Beyonce fall in the same category as Barack and Michelle Obama, a bunch of self-interested simpletons. This is the problem with allowing people to lob lawsuits from behind a shield of anonymity. This isn't about safety. This is about being able to throw a rock and hide your hands. The Constitution says that a defendant has the right to confront their accusers. That's the Sixth Amendment. And yet we have an entire class of accusers who are categorically shielded from being confronted, questioned, or anything else. And a disproportionate number of them make accusations against black men. This has been going on since lynchings. All of these lynchings were some anonymous white woman who claimed that some black person did something. He looked at me, etc., etc. Those are the first rape shield laws to protect the targeting and selective harming of black people on some white woman's accusation. And we still see it today. This has been and continues to be used as a means to shake down black celebrities, drag them through the mud, and by extension, black men in general, all the while allowing the accusers, whose own reputations are usually far worse than what they accuse these black men of, to walk away with no damage to their own reputations or any sort of penalties for the accusations they make and the harm that it causes. It's like whenever you have black people who are killed by the police, and you got these police departments who say, well, we're not going to say who the officer who killed this person is. We're not going to say who it is. How is the public supposed to know who the hell it is? Or how to avoid these killers who are roaming amongst them? But that's the entire point, to allow them to commit crimes with impunity and then blame the victim. Now, it ought to make sense that the white media doesn't report on these accusations unless and until they can name both the accuser and the accused, right? This is a grown woman making these accusations, and she claims that this alleged assault happened 24 years ago at a party in 2000, so today she would be about 38 years old. Notice how it's these women who are no longer the young teeny boppers who are the main ones throwing these kind of suits. They don't do it when they're young and getting all that attention. They only discover their need to file lawsuits when the phone stops ringing, when they're not getting lit into the clubs ahead of everybody else anymore. They got crow's feet and laugh lines, and those first few gray hairs have started sprouting in. Yeah, when you're not Miss Hot Fang anymore, then it's time to see if you can cash in other ways. And there's always some bottom-feeding, ambulance-chasing clown to help them do it. By the way, when I read that the accuser's lawsuit against Jay-Z and Diddy is based out of Texas, at first I started wondering, gee, is this Sleaze merit? Keep in mind, Sleaze had been representing one of R. Kelly's accusers, and Sleaze infamously ran around saying that there's a rape culture among black men in America. So it's understandable that someone would wonder if maybe these accusations against Diddy and Jay-Z were coming from the same person. Now, as of this recording, the accuser, who has been giving interviews with the white media, who they say is a 38-year-old white woman from Alabama, and she's doing the believe all women line, she has not come forward no matter what the white media claims. NBC was giving an anonymous interview to this woman. That's not coming forward at all. It's the equivalent of giving a phone interview anonymously. You can only come forward if you do so publicly. But it seems that Jay-Z was prescient with his denials because the main reason that this woman seems to be coming forward, quote unquote, to talk to the white media anonymously is because her story has all sorts of holes in it and she's trying to do damage control. This woman had claimed that she spoke with musician Benji Madden at the New York after party for the VMAs, but a representative said that neither he nor his brother Joel attended that year's VMAs because they were touring the Midwest at the time. NBC reported this. This woman also said that her father picked her up after the alleged rape, but he's told NBC News that he has no recollection of doing so. Also, as the white media has been forced to report, some photos of Carter's and Combs on the night of the alleged incident don't match the description of the location where the woman said the assault took place. Now, the white media is being forced to actually admit this woman's story is being debunked 5 ways from Sunday, but that's not the headlines that they're using. And that's important because 90% of people who actually do pay attention, passing attention to the white media, they only look at headlines and then move on. The white media knows that. They know that their headlines can be the exact opposite of what's in the body of their so-called reporting, and yet most of the people will only remember the headlines that they see. They don't actually take out the time to actually read the white media articles. Now, it's good that they actually don't take out the time to read propaganda, but it's bad because they actually look at the headlines, which is pretty much the same thing. And because of the fact that this is how people have been conditioned by the society to deal with the media, just looking at it at a glance, even though the white media does bury the truth in their articles, most of the time the people never actually see it. So the lie is what they remember. The damage is done. So this accuser's claims against Jay-Z are crumbling before our eyes, but that's not going to stop the white media from trying to prop them up anyway. Remember, the case against Jonathan Majors was non-existent. He was charged for running away from someone for blocks, and yet he was convicted of, well, I'm not exactly sure. Now, these are totally unsubstantiated claims that this woman's making. Even her own father doesn't back her up on it. That's how you know she ain't got a case. Nonetheless, nothing but Caucasians, or the Nazi bigot company, talks as if these accusations were still basically true, asking questions like, is any part of you scared speaking out against such powerful people? There we go with that particular bit of propaganda again. This is what Kamal Dumbbell did, propping up that white media lie. If you're a black man, you're a powerful man, so powerful. Bill Cosby didn't have no real power. And as far as Jay-Z and Puff Daddy go, what kind of power do these men have? Seriously. They only have the power to agree with whatever really powerful white man is right in front of them, and that's what they actually do. And the reason that they do that is to set up what it is the dominant society really wants to do, which is to strip these black men of whatever wealth or any sort of stature or standing that they have. Because the white media never asks these kind of questions when black people are standing up to the police or white politicians. Instead, they take the police's line when they know it's total lies. Now, all that aside, I'd like to give some free legal advice to Jay-Z in particular. If he thinks that this means that they're going to stop gunning for him, he's wrong. They took down Kanye, Cosby, R. Kelly, and they're working on Diddy. Clearly, the white powers that be have a list that they're working their way through, and the black media's been telling you about this for decades. Black celebrities live in a bubble, though, and there's no getting them out of it because that's where they want to be. Jay-Z thought that being on the cover of Forbes with Warren Buffett meant that he was seen as being on the same level as a white man. He thought he was being validated by white power. That's how you had this fool run around talking about chess moves and such. I have never rocked with, rolled with, or been cool with the likes of a Jay-Z. He's a totally self-interested chump. The white media, however, uses clowns like him as proxies for the black community in general, and that's the reason why we at least need to say something about what it is that we're seeing. Not advocating for anyone, but at least speak to the truth of what's really going on. Now, some of you may see some of his rap lyrics as being quotable, and that's fine. A stopped clock is right about twice a day, but little do these clowns, these black celebrities realize that the joke is on them. Speaking of which, white society loves a cruel prank, especially one that takes a long time to pay off. That's the reason why the cruel pranks that the white society loves the most are almost all about some unsuspecting mark who they let pretend to be friends with them, and that person thinks that they've been accepted, and then they let them go on thinking they were liked when in reality their friends couldn't stand them and couldn't wait for the other shoe to drop. You've no doubt heard that white youth are the main ones who buy rap records, a dubious claim at best, but it is true that they certainly listen to it a lot. Well, how many white kids have you seen bumping Bad Boys records or playing R. Kelly's greatest hits over the decades? And all of them were playing Jay-Z's Big Pimpin', and yet all it took was one white media headline about an accusation with no proof at all, mind you, and those same white youth couldn't wait to jump on the he did it bandwagon. See, if these were white men who these accusations were made against, we would either see the white media giving some sort of half-hearted defense of them, or more than likely just ignoring it altogether and be treated as a footnote, not worthy of front page anything. And all of these white youth out here, they would be rushing to the rescue to defend their idols. But these are just some black guys, regardless of their alleged fame or celebrity. So whatever negative is said about them must be true on some level or another. So the black celebrities are going to continue to have to learn a harsh lesson, but the truth of the matter is the lesson never sticks, it never gets through. And that being the case, well, it looks like the final act for a lot of these guys is not going to be spending their retirement years doing tours of their old hits, but instead is going to be playing to a group of far more select clientele in a cell block somewhere. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. David Williams, Brenda McPherson, Shannon Moore, Jimmy Whitfield, and Rebellious Zoe. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.